Let me tell you a story. This is one of my favorite things to say to my own kids, my students, and sometimes here on these videos where we're just hooking people with our stories. Now, using a story to get someone's attention is one thing, using it to teach is something else as well. I am so excited for you to hear from someone today who is using story to teach emotional intelligence and well-being. Now, these are skills that are going to serve our kids from childhood way on into adulthood to deal with the emotions that come their way in a really healthy way. If we haven't met yet, I'm Melissa, homeschooling mom of 4 and online teacher. I help guide others in their teaching journey here online, and we talk a little bit about homeschooling, productivity, and teaching here on this channel. Please go ahead and click subscribe. That really helps out this channel, getting people the information they need. And go ahead and give this video a like. It doesn't cost you a thing, and it helps me out immensely. You guys, I am so excited for you to hear from Brent Feinberg today. He has written a series of books that teach these emotional intelligence and well-being skills, and we're going to go ahead and hear from him in just a second. Sit tight. Let's get going. Hello, Brent. Well, let's start off with where we're coming to the table from. Could you tell us a little bit about an experience that you had as a kid that informed how you think about emotional intelligence and well-being today?
Yes, certainly. There are two things that come to mind. One is a bit of a harrowing story. When I was 10 years old, I was with my dad in the car and we got hijacked and he was shot. And from that point on, for a few years, I carried around a lot of fear with me and a lot of anger at the event. And I got to a point in my life where I just decided I didn't want to live with fear anymore because I didn't see it serving a purpose. And it was almost imagining the unknown constantly. And it was really holding me back and creating a lot of anxiety. And so just that decision set me off on a path of how to let go of the fear and be more optimistic and not worry about the future.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sorry you went through that, but my goodness, what an experience for a kid. That's amazing. And to come out of it with a mindset shift that big, which is huge. So this is clearly a very important thing in your life. Talk to me a little bit about emotional intelligence and well-being. Like, can you define those skills? It sounds like you've put them into good use in your own life. Let's
Yes,
get people up to speed. What do those mean?
for sure. So emotional intelligence is all about being able to bring awareness to what emotions we are having inside of ourselves. What are the different emotions? And then once we can pinpoint our emotions, it's the ability to shift state, to move from unpleasant emotions like anger, fear, sadness, into more joyful, pleasant emotions like love, happiness. So that is the intelligence. So we don't let these unpleasant emotions affect our relationships in a negative way, affect our studies, or affect our work. When we're in a more pleasant emotional state, we are able to focus, we're happier, friendlier, our relationships flow with more ease. And that's what emotional intelligence is about. It's about using our own intelligence to create the desired feeling that we want within ourselves. And there are many skills and tools that are available to all of us to do that.
Absolutely. Well, and this could be as simple as like recognizing we're hangry, right? Everybody's been there, all we need is a snack really. But if we can stop ourselves in the unpleasant moment of acting the way we don't want to act, and we're just all we need is a snack, right? To remedy that to something a little bit more, intense, right? Living in fear, as you mentioned. Or I might think of some of my kids. I have 4 kids that we homeschool. And so thinking about some of their personalities where they're scared of failure. They don't want to look like they don't know what they're talking about. They don't want to do something wrong in their sports class, right? They don't want to look dumb there, right? And so there's this fear, this unpleasant space that they're operating out of. But if we can shift that, it looks different. So I mentioned a homeschooling context. How are these skills normally taught in a school context. I know you've worked in a few of these contexts. You are writing, you're an author. I would love for you to explain a little bit more of that. How are some of these skills taught in a school's context? And then tell us a little bit about Freeing Freddie, the book that you've written.
So in the schooling context, I think the skills would be taught the exact same way as to a homeschooler. Maybe there would be some different communication activities that could be practicing groups. As we know, communication is such a big part of how we express our emotions, how we navigate exchanging emotions with other people. And emotions are such a powerful part of our lives. They are what drag us down or bring us up. They're at our greatest moments in life and at our darkest moments in life. So navigating them and how we express them is incredibly important. And that's how we would teach homeschoolers to use them, as well as kids in schools. I don't think there's a difference when it comes to emotional intelligence, well-being skills. We're addressing the human being. What setting that person or child is in isn't too important to how we address them.
Good.
And
Yeah,
then you asked me about Freeing Freddie. So Freeing Freddie is the first storybook that I wrote. It's about a boy named Freddie who lives in a magical rainforest. And Freddie goes on an incredible journey to overcome his fears, surmount challenges, and begin to dream, to use his imagination. And I wrote the story to inspire lots of different kids around the world and help them to overcome their own fears, their own anxieties, and spark their imaginations.
I love that. I love that. And books are so powerful. I love teaching other concepts with books, but this just feels genius. And I want to just real quick scooch back to something that you said before, because emotions are kind of the bedrock on which everything else is built, right? If our emotions are in check, if we're doing well, yeah, that math test, we could probably take that on easily. That competition that we have coming up, we can take that on with a healthy mindset. But if the emotions are out of whack, if they are just not settled, if we're coming at it from an unhealthy place, a lot of that is not going to be set up well for success in other areas. And so the fact that Freeing Freddie and the other books that are coming along down the pike are being used to teach these skills is really huge. And so I just love the idea that you're teaching these skills with books, and especially books like this one that have a place in our home. We can revisit them often. How would you suggest, or how have you seen families use these books to help their kids build emotional intelligence and well-being?
So, like you said, stories are such a wonderful way for kids to connect with characters, to get the mirror neurons in their brains to picture themselves in the situation of the characters, and then be able to think, if the character can overcome certain things, so can I. And through thousands of years, humans develop by telling stories. So storytelling is a part of our DNA. And that's why we all can relate to stories so strongly. So when teaching something like emotions, it's really a good thing to have it connected to a story. Also, I'd love to make the connection, and I don't see many people doing it, between thoughts and emotions. The mind's made up of two parts, our emotions and our thoughts. If our emotions are in a certain state, then our thoughts reflect those emotions. So we can use the power of our thoughts to train our emotions, and we can also use training our emotions to create more pleasant thoughts.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we can model well to our kids, or we could be non-examples of this. So for those homeschoolers out there, for those teachers out there who are possibly heading back into the classroom soon, or if you're an online teacher, right? The kids, the young people that you meet with each day are picking up on our emotional health as well. And so I think there's a really a big lesson to be learned there in terms of what emotions are we having, and how are we letting them influence our thoughts. One way I love thinking about this is like playlists or tracks in my mind. What playlists do I get on when I get a negative comment on something, if I get some negative feedback on something, if a class isn't going as I want it to, right? What thoughts creep into your mind? And for those of you watching this, maybe pause for a second and reflect. What thoughts run through your mind when something perhaps that we perceive as negative comes up? And on the flip side, what is your kind of track? What's your playlist that runs through your mind when you've got a positive emotion going on? I love that. And in Freeing Freddie and the other books, which I'm going to go ahead and pop up on the screen so you guys can see. Brent, do you mind just walking us through what we're seeing, what we're seeing on the cover here?
So we have the storybook of Freeing Freddie the Dreamweaver on the top left, and then that is accompanied with an activity sticker book with fun things to do for your younger kids, ages 5 to 11. And then there's a workbook for teenagers and adults to integrate the lessons from the story. And then we have a new book that is a work in progress. It's busy at print at the moment. It's Freddie and the Gift of Light. It's a working title, but it'll be available soon. And that will also have an activity sticker book. We know the kids love stickers.
They love it. They love it. Very cool. And, I live in South America, and so the fact that it is available in Spanish as well is really cool. So for my other bilingual families out there, that is a really cool thing, especially to get copies in both languages, so that you can really tackle those topics in a heart language. This goes for any language. So even if Spanish is not one of the languages that your family speaks, make sure that you're having these conversations in your child's heart language, as well as the languages that are spoken at school or at home, whatever they're interacting with. So Brent, I bet most people listening to this already have some of their math and science, their core subject curriculum. Could you share why it would be important for them to have an emotional intelligence and well-being curriculum as well? And I would say even before the math and the science kind of come up, why would this be important?
So this 100% speaks to my personal journey of having lots of big emotions, dealing with a lot of anger, anxiety in primary school and high school. And I wasn't able to focus on my academics. Even though I had a really good aptitude for it, the emotions, the thoughts, the ability to be peaceful, sit down and focus on studies just wasn't there. So for me, I had to learn how to deal with the emotions, how to deal with the mindset so I could apply my mind. And the application of the mind is useful in every situation. So we want our emotions to support us and our thoughts to enhance what we want to achieve in life, instead of going against our own personal desires or trajectory in life.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why it's so important. The bedrock of the joys in life are good relationships. That comes from communication skills. When kids move on from school into the workplace, a lot of success in the workplace is based on relationships too, and the kind of persona we bring, and a lot of that is our emotional state, our mental state. Everyone wants to be around the easygoing, thoughtful person, and it can bring a lot of goodness to our lives if we develop these skills, particularly when we're young. Sometimes it's much harder to unpack as we get older because we have all these experiences, all these emotional impressions. If we can begin to learn these skills when we're young, it's much easier and can be more effective.
Yeah. And I want to stress that. I mean, it's so important to talk about this. But I want to say, you're not guaranteeing your child this smooth sailing life, right? But you're actually giving them this backpack full of tools that they're going to be able to use. And so, we've been using Free the Mind Co. and Freeing Freddie for a few months now, nearly 6 months now. And my kids, it's been really cool, Brent, and I just want to give this back to you. So I want to say thank you, number one, for writing something like this, because it's exciting. It creates wonder. They're hooked on the story, but also it's giving them language. And so, for example, for my two youngest kids who are currently 5 and 7, they'll have their moments, right? They freak out about, the wrong color plate or whatever, right? Something that we're like, before I would have had, a pointed talk and say, hey, we all have these different plates. If you'd like, you could ask someone else to switch, whatever, right? Try to have those intentional conversations, and that's fine. But I would have described that as kind of winging it. I was just addressing these emotions in the moment, and it wasn't even their emotion. It was just their reaction to what was happening. What's the emotion? It's that I feel like I wasn't listened to. I told you I wanted that blue plate. I want that blue plate always, right? But I give you the orange plate instead, right? And so it's figuring out how to then communicate, right? And with our younger kids, it's, bringing the volume down, bringing the intensity down. And now they're able to say, hey, I need to go kind of do a butterfly stretch for a second. I need to take a second and do some rainbow breathing, right? They're taking all these skills that they've learned from Freeing Freddie and the program that goes along with it. And so they're able to kind of communicate that. My older two kids, who are currently 9 and 11, they have used these skills, and they're not saying, I need to do some rainbow breathing. No, that's a little lower. And I do want to stress, we'll show in just a second that there are older and younger versions of this curriculum. But for them, it's being able to communicate clearly without expressing it in a negative way. So, for example, my 9-year-old, who's probably our spiciest child, she'll say, I just need you to walk away from me for a minute. Great, I can do that. And then she's able to control herself a little bit more and then express in a calm way. So I see the fruit of this. And so I just want to say thank you. It's a wonderful tool, and it's beautifully built. So I love that they get to do this. They say, can I do Freddie? It's more like a privilege than one of their daily tasks, which is really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over to what this looks like at freethemindco.com. Would you mind talking us through what families can find here?
So as part of our offering, we have a full family program, which offers activities for families to do together, the parents and the kids. You touched on a very good point. A big reason I wrote Freeing Freddie was to create greater connection between parents and their kids, and to give language for things like how the kids are feeling, what are their dreams, and make these harder to have conversations easier. And like you mentioned, give skills and tools like, what do we do when we're feeling anger? We don't want to blurt it out. We don't want to hurt the people we love. So it's better we deal with it on our own in an effective way, and then we can approach the relationships we have in an easier, more pleasant fashion. And this builds family unity. So we have the family program, which is incredible. It's for kids of all ages. And then we have the homeschool program, which is divided into 2 parts, like you mentioned. It's for ages 5 to 8, and then there's a separate program which is ages 9 to 12, which are leveled appropriately for those age groups.
They are really beautifully built. They're separated into these adventures that kids can go on, but all the educator supports, which I love, immersive readers. So there's a little audio button that they can click, especially for the young kids who maybe are pre-readers. They're able to click on that, and the text on screen will be read to them, which is really cool. So a beautiful option, lots of reflection, crafts in there, a place to journal. And all of this is really nicely packaged so that as the adult, you don't have to sit there and do it with them, right? This is kind of a self-guided thing, but you do have the access to check in with them, see what they've written, talk about it, again, connect over it. So I love that. It's beautifully done. So if you're looking for something like this, doesn't matter the time of the year, if you're watching this at not the beginning of the school year, if you're thinking, I think we might need something like this, go ahead and check the link in the description. And then we've also got a 10% off code for you. So that is all in there. And we would love for you to try this out, pick it up, and see how your family reacts to it. Brent, anything we've missed that you'd like to make sure we add in here?
Yeah, just how easily accessible the curriculum and online program is. Parents can engage as much as they want, but it's fully self-led for the kids to do it on their own. It's super easy to use. It can be done something like once a week for 45 minutes or twice a week, depending on how quickly they wanted to get through it or where in the year your particular child is. So it's really easy to either adapt or adopt into your lifestyle. And we just want kids to have fun and enjoy it. It's not heavy, it's super light, it's colorful. There are lots of animations and games. So it's a very enjoyable, fun process.
Absolutely. And if you're not ready for some reason for the full online program, check out the books. The books are a fantastic opportunity as well. And those activity books as well. Super cool. All right. Well, Brent, as we wrap up, I love hearing what people are looking forward to. So personally, professionally, what are you looking forward to in the next 6 months or so?
I'm really looking forward to seeing my niece and my sister and my brother-in-law again as they live halfway across the world. She was born recently and she's very sweet. She's a great light in all of our lives.
That's exciting. Well, great. Well, Brent, thank you so much for what you've done, bringing this great resource to families. So I really appreciate it. And the great crew you've got over at Free the Mind Co. It's fun to get to dive into what you guys are building. And for those of you who are watching, if nobody's told you yet today, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. It's really important, guys. Happy teaching.